Bon Jovi!
Everything we've been through together and all the great experiences we've had, we've lived together.
John Bon Jovi forged a five-man musical fraternity as fiercely loyal and combative as brothers.
It was a gang. It was a gang against everybody.
You fight these battles together, and the battles being, you know, real wars.
It's kind of like the rock and roll mafia. Once you're in, you can never leave.
Bon Jovi's mix of metal, magnetism, and madness kept them at the top of the charts. Blue-collar New Jersey boys, they worked hard for their fans' respect.
You know, nobody could shoot this.
They were working-class warriors turned rock and roll royalty, and they celebrated their success like kings.
We lived that life, man. Big.
Of all hours of the night, drinking, having fun.
Then he said, okay, I'm coming into town, come, you know, meet me at a hotel. And I'm like, no, I can't do that.
Lay your hands on me!
To the eyes of the world, Bon Jovi looked invulnerable, but within the family, the cracks began to show.
The band are drunk and high and bloated, and me too, and we were a wreck.
They were toast. They didn't dig each other. They weren't going to talk to each other.
That you could ever ask for, and yet I wasn't happy.
This ain't a song for the broken-hearted.
The Bon Jovi brotherhood broke apart, but not for long.
Somebody says, like, oh, that's it, the band's broken up. It'll be back. Because it was just too big, and it was too good.
In 1989. But Bon Jovi was always more than a band. They were family.
These are guys who grew up.
Still barely in his teens, John began jamming with several local bands and hanging out in the Asbury Park nightclubs that spawned legendary Jersey rockers like Bruce Springsteen and Southside Johnny. In 1979, John formed the Atlantic City Expressway. One of the first to audition was a 17-year-old high school kid, keyboard player David Bryan.
John and I got introduced because he went to Sayreville High School and I went to J.P. Stevens over the bridge.
John who commanded the spotlight.
I remember Springsteen coming to one of his shows where he was playing at the fest.
John wrote and recorded over 50 demos from 1980 to 83. He was never shy about self-promotion.
John Bon Jovi band right here. We have a dater.
Until I went to a radio station in New York called WAPP.
At the time, WAPP was New York City's cutting-edge rock radio station. In '83, a DJ put Runaway on a station-sponsored album of local artists. Was eager to grab him, Mercury Records made John an offer he couldn't refuse.
And that's when John called me up and said, we got a record deal. I'm putting the band back together. I said, if you're lying to me, I'm going to kill you.
With Dave Bryan on board, John brought in local bass player Alec John Such and drummer Tico Torres.
I got a phone call from Alec. He says, I'm playing with these guys, and you should come check it out. I met John. John came over in like 1.5 feet of snow.
The last member to join was a charismatic 24-year-old lead guitarist named Richie Sambora.
I learned how to play guitar from playing with the bands I love. I used to sit there and play with Eric Clapton, play with Johnny Winter, play with Led Zeppelin, Aerosmith, and that's the way I taught myself how to play.
Richie had left college in his freshman year to work full-time as a professional guitarist. He was an experienced pro by the time he caught Bon Jovi's act on stage.
And I went, yeah, that kid's a star. That could be something good. I can fit in here.
He came and saw me and had the balls to walk up to me and say, I'm going to be the guitar player. And he was really persistent.
And he said, all right, know these songs, blah, 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 blah. He gave me a demo tape and this, that, and the other. And of course, I came in prepared, like, and he was late. And by the time he got there, like, the band was sounding better than it obviously ever did. And he just walked in and went, okay, you're in. That was it.
John had gathered together a musical brotherhood of 5 kindred souls. To capitalize on his success with Runaway, the band was called simply Bon Jovi.
The timing factor was right for a band like Johnny, and the players were all there.
Rock manager Doc McGee had made a name for himself working with Motley Crue. In the fall of '80, John went home to Jersey and Dorothea.
I went to her mom's house and did the whole, you know, you gotta come with me, you gotta be, you know, I want to be back together. And so, you know, she fell for it.
But soon after reconnecting with Dorothea, John headed to Vancouver with the boys in the band to record their third album.
We all moved into this.
After 4 exhausting years, Bon Jovi was the hottest band in America. They celebrated the news as they did everything else, together.
They're just like all huddled together.
The secret society, yeah. It's kind of like the rock and roll mafia.
The cliche backstage party pictures of who's screwing who and who's high and who's drunk. That's our business, you know. I don't know if it was the heritage, the Jersey thing, too many years of watching The Godfather, whatever it was, you kept family business to the family.
Internal affairs were kept so private, few outsiders were aware that the band was straining under the weight of their relentless tour schedule.
John went from being this really willing to do anything guy to...
Released in the fall of '88, New Jersey featured 5 top 10 singles and quickly became Bon Jovi's second consecutive #1 album.
I can't speak. I was gonna cry about 4 times.
2 months later, Bon Jovi joined Motley Crue, Ozzy Osbourne, Skid Row, and the Scorpions in the Moscow Music Peace Festival.
And this ain't no glasnost, man. This is rocknost.
In the year
to treat alcohol and drug abuse kids in the Soviet Union.
A year earlier, after pleading guilty on a drug charge involving the transport of nearly 20 tons of marijuana into the U.S., Doc founded an anti-drug charity.
Please welcome to the USSR, Bon Jovi!
When John came up with this crazy idea, put on the whole Russian army suit, walk down the middle of the aisle and make this grand entrance.
From when we hit the stage, I turned physically and emotionally. You can look at us on that stage. The band are drunk and high, and we were a wreck.
And after 20 countries, we have to say goodbye.
And that's how that New Jersey tour ended. And there was nobody screwing anybody's wife or I screwed you out of money. None of that. But when that show was over, 5 guys took 5 planes to 5 different places. And there was no goodbyes. It was just pour me in my suitcase and take me home. And we were dead. Dead.
Everybody was saying I. There wasn't any we's in the sentences. When you start saying I instead of we, the party's pretty much over.
We just needed to get on with our own life and whatever that may be. I mean, I refurbished my bedroom to look like a Four Seasons. If that isn't dysfunctional because you're on the road, I don't know what is.
I realized I couldn't get in an elevator. I went home and told my wife, I said, I'm fine, I'm fine. Because you won't even get in an elevator without, like, freaking out. And I went, you're right, I've become claustrophobic. I've become all these things. I went through a very difficult time, and it was the physical and emotional burnout of running at that speed for really 86, 87.
And I came over to get the real story because I went to Japan with the cover line for the issue in my head, Bon Jovi, dead or alive, question mark.
We wanted to go out and do pictures for this cover, so I asked them to sit opposite me, John and Richie, so I could shoot them while we were traveling. And neither of them said a word to each other.
We were going to have this picture where John was up front, looking like the superstar that he is, and there's Richie Sambora looking over John's shoulder, like he had probably felt like he was most of his career.
I mean, the session was probably an hour and a half long. Neither of them said a word. They just ignored each other.
In their silence, a rift between John and Richie was widening.
He's only admitted to me recently, or I've admitted back to him, that there was the, "See, what about me? I'm the 50% owner of those songs too. How come I'm not getting the notoriety that you're getting? The record company loves you more than they love me." So those things were getting to him.
In January of '91, John, Richie, and the group went their separate ways. John was confused and miserable.
I was out in California a lot, staying out in Malibu, what I called the gray summer. Would spend every day on the beach, drinking, miserable, not knowing why. Had all the success that you could ever ask for, and yet I wasn't happy.
You know, they always say once you reach the top, there's only one way to go. And I think that was a fear of his back then. You know, what can I do next?
John decided to hit the road, though not with the band. He took Dorothea, Doc McGee, and a few close friends on motorcycle trips, hoping to improve his mood. The excursions were therapeutic, but John's relationship with his manager, Doc McGee, was starting to change.
He was just doing his job by promoting the band, making us the biggest band in the world. Everything he set out to do, he did. But he didn't see me diversifying like this and doing soundtracks and talking, hey, what if I got into movies? He wasn't seeing that.
The tension between John and Doc came to a head in the fall of '91 when Bon Jovi was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by MTV.
I knew it was for ratings, and I hated that idea. And I let Doc talk us into it, and the band begrudgingly all showed up, and we were just not happy guys.
This is not an award for anyone else but our fans.
We met on the stage, we got our trophies. I gave mine away to a girl that was standing on the side of the stage. Said, "You keep it, I don't even want it," and walked away.
After the show, John unloaded on Doc.
Got in the car with Doc and his wife and my wife. Expressed my unhappiness in no uncertain terms. And somehow the words came up about moving on or, you know, severing the ties. And I said, yeah, I think that's right.
And it was just getting uglier at the time. It's like any relationship, you know. It started to go bad.
After 8 intense and triumphant years, John Bon Jovi fired Doc McGee. John closed ranks and formed his own management company to handle the band's affairs. That same fall, Richie Sambora took charge of his own career with the release of his first solo album. Eric Clapton played on the album, but it barely cracked the top 40.
Maybe I should have been, in hindsight, more radio-minded. I totally was thrown down from a soulful artistic place.
In the spring of '92, almost 2 years after their last tour together, Bon Jovi decided to give the band another shot.
In my heart of hearts, I said to myself, you know what, even if somebody says like, oh yeah, the band's broken up, it'll be back. Because it was just too big, and it was too good.
It was a very successful band. There was no, I hate him. We were burned out on each other, but there was no weird why. This didn't make any sense.
I mean, it was a vast undertaking to get everybody back together, face each other, tell each other the truth, like, man, I didn't dig you then, I hated you then, or this, that, and all that kind of broke open a whole slew of new marketplaces. So, you know, we looked at each other and went, oh my God, we did it.
And the second chapter of the band began.
After a lengthy tour for Keep the Faith, Bon Jovi released an album of greatest hits in '94. But it was a new song on the record that stayed in the top 10 for 6 months. Always spoke of love and loyalty, yet Bon Jovi's inner circle was about to face its most devastating betrayal. According to the band, close friend and bass player Alec John Such no longer played on the group's studio albums and had become a liability during live performances.
You're in a situation, you're playing in front of millions and millions of people, and there's a mistake happens, and you go, oh, God. First couple times you feel bad for him, and after that you start feeling bad for yourself and bad for the organization.
You got to a point where if you can't carry your weight, it's not fair to the rest of us. We couldn't sacrifice what we sounded like live. We could cover it up in the studio, but we couldn't take care of it anymore.
In the summer of '94, Alec broke ranks with the Inner Circle and spilled his guts to the press. In an article published in Raw magazine, Alec said that he would not be playing on Bon Jovi's next album due to John's constant criticism of his playing.
The fact that it was in the press, it's a shame that it was, and that the laundry had to be done in public like that, because that's not the kind of band we are.
That fall, after over a decade with the band, Alec John Such was fired.
It was difficult to tell him, but, you know, I had him at my house one night and told him. It was, you know, it was that simple. How to do it.
The band insists that dismissing Alec had nothing to do with the magazine article. Alec declined to be interviewed for Behind the Music.
It's a shame because none of us see him anymore, none of us talk to him anymore. But, I think of him a lot.
But solo projects haven't hurt the band. In June of 2000, Bon Jovi released their 8th album.
This ain't a song for the broken-hearted.
I think they're going back a little bit to their roots on this record. I think Bon Jovi fans are going to like that.
It's just a happy, fun rock and roll record.
It's my life, it's now or never.
If there's an underlying theme to this record, it's I'm comfortable in the shoes I'm in. I know where I fit in, what I do, and how I do it.
Like all brothers, the men of Bon Jovi have begun lives of their own. But whatever they accomplish individually, they'll still be 5 kids from New Jersey who vowed to become the biggest band in the world, and did.
It's my life.